And welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we're going to have a good time this afternoon. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start up in Northeast Florida with Captain David Voorhees. We're going to find out what's biting up in the Northeast. I know the Spanish and the Blues have moved into there. The Pogies are on their way. Check in East Central. Find out what it's looking like there. It's almost cobia time. Hit Stewart, come on down the East Coast, go through Islamorada, start in 10,000 Islands, up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle until we know everything that's going on fishing-wise in Florida. I also want to know from the boys this week, what are they recommending for their clients for sun protection? Hey, when we were kids, it was putting baby oil with iodine in it on your skin to get good and dark. Well, we've sure all learned better than that by now. We don't want any skin cancer on our customers or on our fishing buddies this year, so let's learn how the pros are keeping the sun away. This week's Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids. And by Castaway Hat Co. They've got a hat for every adventure. Time to hit Northeast Florida. Let's check in with Captain David Voorhees. David, it's almost springtime, isn't it?
Buddy, it is springtime. Let me tell you, this week was a fantastic bite. A lot of species of fish starting to show up, and I mean just really showing up quick. Water temperatures are, we saw 73 today.
Now you're talking.
So, yeah, water temperatures getting up there the way we like it. So, but I tell you, Rick, I couldn't believe how many different species we caught this week. We caught quite the variety from, flounder, trout, reds, the usual, and a couple of really nice black drum. We saw quite a few more sheephead this week than we've seen in the past. Now, granted, there were a lot of the small males and stuff like that. I'm not seeing the big females. I think they're still out at the rocks. But one thing I did see today in the last few days is the birds working, and a lot of guys are going out there along this St. Johns River and where the intercoastal meet, and they're seeing these birds, and they're catching a lot of bluefish and Spanish mackerel. But today, man, we must have timed it just right, Rick. We got on a really good trout bite today.
Oh, good.
And the trout were spitting up anchovies, and so that was really good. I like seeing the birds diving on the anchovies and the fish feeding on them. Plenty of redfish still back in the creeks. Now I still been doing better on the outgoing tide. The incoming tide today, and I did end up fishing both tides today. The incoming produced the trout and a bunch of other fish, but it did not produce many reds, very few reds. All the reds today came on that outgoing tide, and the lower end of that outgoing tide seems to be much, much better.
David,
spring is here.
Are they hitting artificials yet?
Absolutely, absolutely. We caught reds on the plastics today. I'm throwing my favorite color, which is pearl white, and man, we were catching everything today on that.
Gotcha. Good deal. Hey, I got a question for you before you go.
Okay.
I don't mean this, don't take this wrong, but you're an old guy like me, right? You and I are both kind of old guys, right?
Yep.
Do you remember putting iodine in your baby oil to make your skin darker?
Absolutely. I guess that's showing our age, huh?
I think it is. Fortunately, we've learned better, and we've learned that we have to protect ourselves from that dark tan and sunburn that we used to love so much. Tell me what you're doing with your customers. What are you telling them to bring for sunscreen, hats, all that stuff?
Well, I always tell them, the only thing they're responsible for is they're basically hats, sunglasses, and sunscreen, But trust me, I have quite a variety of sunscreen on my boat that has been left over the over the years that
Sure.
customers just seem to leave on the boat. But the one thing I absolutely tell people, and when you see me out on the water, I got the white nose and all that stuff. You got to have zinc oxide in it. I look for the the mosquito, the sunscreens that's going to have the zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is one of the best things that's going to give you the protection. And of course, I look for something to cover my lips. But, we're going into our busy season where, we're doing, 20, 25 trips a month. So I'm out here quite a bit. I wear the gloves, the long sleeve shirts. I try to keep the sun off of me as much as I possibly can. And the main thing is I try to get younger kids into it because, this is, skin protection is something very personal with me. I lost my first wife to melanoma, to skin cancer. And I tell you what, man, there's nobody, you don't want anybody to go through that
That's for sure.
deadly cancer. It is really horrible. But, from what I've heard, what my dermatologist tells me, this is damage we did when we were a kid. A lot of the stuff we're paying for now is damage we did a long time ago. So it's more important that we get out here and protect these younger kids who are getting out here. And Rick, you'd be surprised how many kids come out here and they don't wear sunglasses. They don't have the sun protection on. And I try to tell these parents, I said, you might want to cover him up, or cover them up. But, these kids, they're young. We were like that. We didn't care about our eyesight and things like that. But you got to really preach it to these kids that, man, they got to wear sun protection.
Isn't it funny how in all the pictures of the old fishermen,
yep,
long before we came along, there were these big straw hats. And
yep.
now think of the pictures of the old man in the sea. What's he got on? That big straw hat. Everybody's got them. The old guys around here wore them. Now they're making a comeback.
They are, absolutely.
I just think it's cool that people are starting to, and I wear one. I mean, I had never worn one. Matt Strait, who is a commercial fisherman, I laughed at his. So he said, you just wear one for a day and see how much better you feel. I'll be doggone. I am absolutely positively cooler in a big straw hat. Now, I wear long but very light pants. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right, right. Yep.
And I wear those long sleeve performance shirts. If I get in a cotton T-shirt now, I feel like I'm stuck in the oven, David.
Yep. No cotton. Don't wear cotton. When I would do my seminars for going to the Bahamas, one of the things I would preach is, don't bring anything cotton with you. And I actually wear 2 long sleeve shirts now, Rick.
Huh. I'll be darned.
Yeah, I've actually started doubling up just to keep the sun off because my bad spots are my arms and the back of my hand. So I wear the gloves and all that stuff.
Yep. Gotcha. David, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, Ricky. You know where I'll be, buddy.
You got it, Cap. Captain David Voorhees. Time for East Central. That means it's Jimmy Ross time. Jim, how you doing?
Doing fantastic, Rick.
I'm glad to hear it, my brother. Tell me how your fishing is. Is it getting better?
No.
Oh, no, don't tell me that.
Before this recent cold front, it was /full moon. It was really good. We had cobia showing up offshore. We had spinner sharks jumping all over the place. We had bull sharks to catch. We had snook eaten. We had redfish eaten. There were just pompano. It was, just about anybody could go catch a fish. It was just really, really good. And then the cold front happened, and then we compounded that problem with the full moon. And the last 2 days have been pretty darn slow, to be real honest with you. Hopefully, we'll get away from the high pressure that this front has brought, because as the pressure is climbing, it'll get to about 30 point, like this morning as an example, it started off at about 30.15. At 30.21, the fish decided they'd had enough of that, and it went all the way to 30.33. by the time I came off the water. So from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock on the first part of that rise, we caught fish. Once it hit a certain point, they completely shut down. Everything we threw at them, they said, no, we're not having it.
And you link that to barometric pressure. Now, if you're going to do that, you got to tell me what you like for a barometer.
Well, a steady barometer is better than, a steady
Sure.
medium or low barometer is better than a steady high barometer. But when it jacks up like that and then stays up there for 4 or 5 hours before it starts to fall back down, I mean, you're looking at a full day trip on the water where you've got a little bite in the morning and then you'll get a little bite late in the day, and you got 4, 5, 6 hours in the middle where you are just dying on the vine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I prefer a falling if it is a slight fall or a steady pressure. Even a slight rise isn't bad, but when it zooms up, they shut down pretty quick.
Huh. Hey, Jim, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are both lifers in this game, and you're not old enough. I'm old enough to remember wearing baby oil with iodine in it to make your skin darker. But
Yep.
Today, what are you doing with your customers for sun protection?
Well, I definitely tell them buy something that has at least a 30 block in it. If you want to buy a 50 or an 80 or 100, be my guest. But at least a 30 block, and reapply it every so often. I mean, you can look at your customer and see that they're starting to get a little pink. Well, if they're starting to get pink, then they're probably red. So they definitely need to reapply or apply if they haven't put it on to begin with. The key thing that I've found with sunblock is try to find something that isn't oily or greasy. Now, there's a variety of them out there. Without naming any name brands, there's a variety of them out there that sort of have a creamy texture instead of an oily texture.
Right.
And sprays, you can leave the sprays at home.
I was bringing the spray to your boat. I wanted to bring
unless you're coming to my house after the trip and you're helping me clean the boat, because sprays do nothing but wreck the deck.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Here's the other thing. Once you've applied it, put it on wherever you're going to put whatever's exposed, whatever you want to cover. Go ahead and put it on. Make sure you get the backs of your hands as well, because a lot of people don't wear gloves on the boat. And so the backs of their hands and their wrists will get burned, even if they're wearing a long sleeve technical shirt. But I have some soap. I just use regular dishwashing soap that cuts grease. And I have them wash the palms of their hands so that they don't get the sunscreen all over my gear. There's 2 reasons. 1, if you get a big fish, it could potentially slip out of your hand. 2, sunscreen, especially on Shimano reels and some of the other reels that use this Septon grippy, tacky kind of rubbery grip material for their handles.
Right.
It destroys them.
Right.
Absolutely destroys them. So sunscreen on your reel handles is a no-no.
Okay. All right. That's good advice. We appreciate the heck out of it, Jim. Hey, please tell me we can check with you next week. Minimum 30 SPF, right?
Minimum.
Okay.
Minimum. And try to find something that's a dry, they'll call it like a dry or less greasy, less oily. Try and find something like that, because those work the best.
And no spray. Thank you, Cap.
No spray.
We appreciate it. See you next week,
Take
Jimmy.
care, Rick.
Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report. Now let's head on down to Stuart, Florida, my favorite little fishing village, and check in with one John Earhart. John, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you, buddy. How's fishing in Stuart?
Fishing's been pretty good. Offshore fishing lately, we've been catching a lot of smoker-sized kingfish, 30 to 40-pound kingfish. We've been getting some nice mahis, a few sailfish, not a lot, but we're getting a couple of trips, so it's not uncommon to hook one. We're not getting like 10, 15 sailfish a trip, but there's definitely still some good sailfish action around. A few blackfin tunas, but the sharks have kind of moved into the deeper water where the tunas are at, so it's been difficult to get the tunas to the boat. We've been coming up with fish heads. And I got to tell you, I hate bringing tuna fish heads to the boat.
Boy, ain't that the truth. I know what you mean there. Anything much going on inshore?
The inshore fishing's been pretty steady for snook. We've had a bunch of jack crevalles in the river.
We're seeing a few tarpon in the deeper cuts. So, I mean, it's been really steady action, live bait fishing around docks and bridges for snook. There's been a lot of jacks around seawalls and docks, and the tarpon have been out around the channel edges. You know, and these fish have been anywhere from 20 pounds, and I've seen a couple of fish that were over 100 this week. So, I mean, there's definitely a full range of different size tarpon around this week. So if you got a bigger rod and a bigger bait, you can expect to catch some of those larger tarpon right now.
Gotcha. Good deal. Hey, John, you're too young to remember the days of burning our skin on purpose. What are you doing for sun protection for your customers?
I provide several different types of spray and lotion sunblock. I prefer the lotion because when they spray it, they get it all over the boat,
right,
and people are slipping and falling, and it kills the bait. But I provide usually 50 SPF sunblock, and I always tell them bring a hat and sunglasses. And typically I'll have them apply the sunblock, probably 2 times during the charter, because it just really depends on if they're fair skinned or not. You can kind of look at some of your customers and know, hey, they're probably going to burn easily because they don't spend a lot of time in the sun. So that's when I would have them apply multiple times on the charter. And having a big brimmed hat certainly is going to help a lot.
It's funny you say that. If we look at the pictures from 100 years ago of all the guys, the true pioneers offshore, you ever notice they're all wearing those big straw hats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should learn something from them.
I think I'm going to take note and start wearing my straw hat a little more frequently because I don't like skin cancer.
No, sir. No, sir. And I tell you what, I didn't believe in them. I thought as short and fat as I am, that would really look stupid. And I also thought I'd have to take one off every time I started running. I still look stupid, but I don't have to take it off when we start running. And I got to tell you, I'm a lot cooler wearing it. I wear a Castaway, and I do not feel the heat as much. It's almost like having a bimini top over your head all the time.
Yeah, during like March through the end of August, I definitely would have a straw hat because it's definitely going to make a huge difference. Your head's going to feel cooler. You're not going to overheat, and you're not going to be, sunburned at the end of the day.
I'm with you.
Definitely a lot of advantages to wearing that big brimmed hat. That is for sure.
Cap, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. Look forward to next week.
All right, you got it. Captain John Earhart from the Chaos and the Mayhem and Stewart. That means it's time for Miami Beach and one Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
Doing very well, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Cap. I'm doing fine. I ate a big fat whiting for lunch today that my great-grandson caught off my dock, so I'm doing okay. Tell me how your fishing's been.
So the fishing's been good, but you got to be out there when the weather's half decent, and that means you're only getting 1 or 2 days a week before the winds pick up. So when the weather was nice, and that happened Thursday, Friday of last week, and a little bit of Saturday before yesterday, we had a front come in and kind of mess up the weather again. And now it's going to be like that for the rest of the week. So closer to the end of the week, the weather starts to calm down again as another front approaches. And if you can get out in between these fronts, on Thursday, we got into a really big school of Spanish mackerel in the bay. It's only the second time this year that we've had Spanish mackerel around. And these fish are traveling north now, so they're fat. They've been feeding all summer. And they were red hot, though. They were just fighting like crazy. So that was a lot of fun. Big Jack Revels in the bay, up to 10 pounds. Although we did have a bull shark close to 300 pounds try and eat one of ours.
Wow.
You could have literally put a saddle on that fish and rode off on him. But he terrorized us for about 15 minutes, made us leave the spot. On the offshore side, there's been a decent amount of pompano, Spanish mackerel, and bluefish in the surf.
Mm-hmm.
So the pure fish are catching them. But again, you got to be there at the right time. When the water clears up, which hasn't happened a lot recently, those fish disappear and stop biting. When the water's dirty, the fish have been hot. They've been catching quite a few. Further offshore, it's hit and miss. There's a few kingfish, a few blackfin tunas, bonitas, barracudas, your favorite. a few sharks, and and a few dolphin and sailfish. So you got a few of all those species. They're just not bunched up, and they're definitely spread out. Best action's been from about 100 feet out to 300, especially if you can find a current rip, a blue water rip. The Gulf Stream's edge has been much further offshore, about 800 feet. There's been some weeds on it, but no fish, which is kind of disappointing. Another good bite that's going on is the peacock bass are hot in the Everglades conservation areas, the canal systems, double-digit catches. So, one other thing, the guys at night on the party boats, Captain Kenny on the Kelly fleet, they had a really nice catch of yellowtails up to, I'd say about 2 pounds, maybe 3 pounds, but probably had 40 or 50 on a 4-hour trip. So
that's a good trip.
It's a pretty, yeah.
Cap Mallon, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Look forward to it. Right?
Thank you. Cap Mallon Sherman from Miami Beach. It's Alamorada time. Let's go to Kokomo and check in with one Captain Brandon Storen. I love Alamorada with all my heart. That's where Brandon Storen gets to fish every day. Not only does he get to fish every day, he's got the prettiest girlfriend you ever saw. This guy's got it dialed in. How about it, Brandon?
Fiance.
Oh, stop with the fiance. I'm still holding out hope. I think she's going to dump you and come looking for a much older man.
She ain't got sick of me yet.
I can't understand that. Tell me about fishing.
Oh, man, it's tarpon season, that's for sure. We've been catching a lot of good tarpon. Yesterday it slicked out beautiful, and you could just see tarpon rolling all over the horizon. We hooked and landed multiple of them. We also caught another couple of saltfish while tarpon fishing.
Oh, cool.
And another cobia also saltfish. Seems like it's like a routine thing now. The snooks are cooperating a little bit more. We had a pretty tough season for snook and reds down here, but getting more of a hot snook bite. The reds, however, are diminishing. It seems like that water's getting warmer, and they're kind of starting to make that U-turn and go back up north. Also, for offshore, around this full moon, we had a pretty good wahoo bite down here. Spit some really big tunas close to the just off the edge of the reef and around 200 to 300 feet of water. Spent some few big full moon fatties, swordfish around. I have a bite. I caught a 400-pounder.
That's a good one.
Nick caught like a 327-pounder. I know some people who lost a couple big ones as well that took the jug down deep. So spring has sprung. Fishing Alamorada has been great on both sides of the fence. And here we are doing it.
Good deal. Hey, let me ask you a quick question before you go. You young kids grew up with sun protection. Us old guys did not. What do you recommend your customers bring for sun protection?
Pants and a long sleeve shirt.
Yep.
I have this sunscreen. It kind of comes in like a deodorant stick for my nose and ears. And I had, and for that, you can use for your cheeks and whatnot. And I use, of course, chapstick for my lips. But besides that, I don't put any sunscreen on at all, ever. I wear a long sleeve shirt, a hat, a buff, pants, boots. I'm covered from head to toe, except for just like my nose and ears.
Yep. So you take care of your nose and ears, and you let your clothing do the rest, huh?
That's it.
Yep. I understand it. Isn't it funny how if you look at the hottest places on earth, Saudi Arabia, places like that, they wear the most clothes. And you're like,
it makes sense to me now.
It does to me too. You know, when Bimini Bay, I guess, is the first I can remember, coming out with those long pants like you're talking about, got the zippers where you can take the legs on and off. Man, I wear those things every day. I wear a long sleeve shirt every day. I've lately gotten into a big straw hat. You know, it's just, and it's not so much that at my age I'm so scared of skin cancer because I've never had it, but I'm cooler. I'm absolutely cooler with pants on than I am cotton shorts on.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I don't wear shorts until the sun's down.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Captain Brandon, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always.
Good. You got it, Captain Brandon Storen. I want to hear the sawfish report for next week. That's crazy, all those sawfish showing up there. Before we head on over to the West Coast, let's take a minute to hear from the Castaway Hat Company. I'll bet you don't even remember the days all the cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, a lot of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company, who not only provide our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brim you ever saw. You may think your bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. For each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe you me, a few years later, you will thank us old guys with a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. Our thanks to Captain Brandon Storen for telling us what's going on in Islamorada where the tarpon are chewing. I got a funny feeling Captain Steve Dahl over in 10,000 Islands has seen a tarpon or two this week. Am I right, Steve?
They are starting to show.
Yep.
It always seems like that's the key. Once they start going off a little bit in Islamorada, we start seeing some early fish. My guess is that with these big south winds, it's going to push that migration up even further. So, and a little bit quicker. So I would buckle up for the weekend, and the wind's supposed to blow, pretty good leading into the weekend, and lay down a little bit. I think water might be a little muddied up, but I'd like to think those fish are going to be here by the weekend. And that first wave is always very easy to catch. I wouldn't say, but relative to other parts of the year, that first wave in the spring is the wave you want. And we'll probably get that for about 2 weeks, and then they're going to get tough. So if you need a not intelligent one, next couple weeks is the way to go.
Sounds like now's the time.
Sticky.
Now's the time for me to tarpon fish. Tell me about.
Oh, I'm with it.
Tell me about snook.
Snook have been good too. That water temperature is still staying up, and they're active. And that I think we've talked last couple of weeks where our size has really been noticeable this year, where we're seeing a lot of fish in that slot range and a little bit above slot. And instead of those 24s and 22s that we used to be catching for quite a few years, it seems like those year classes are starting to pan out and they're growing up. So snook fishing's fantastic. I mean, it's live bait, pilchards, the way to go. It's readily available right now with that water temperature climbing, and we should be good to go pretty much, for the next couple of months here. Fingers crossed. Doesn't look like we're going to have any cold fronts. I think that's all in our rearview mirror at this point. So it's doing pretty good. That's kind of the highlights, those two fish in particular this week. So
Steve,
fingers crossed the tarpon come. So.
Steve, I think you're right. I think it's spring. It's a particularly joyous time of year for me because ever since I've been a fisherman, God and I have had this understanding that he can take me home whenever he wants, but he can't take me in the spring. I get to fish out my season before I have to go. So yes, you're gonna be stuck with me for another year now. I get to fish out the season.
I'm with you.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Sure, sir.
You're been around a while, and you remember when being so dark tan and sunburned was cool, and you were the hip kid and all that. Well, we learned better. We all had to go through our skin cancers and stuff. What do you do now for your customers for sun protection? What do you tell them to bring, and what do you wear?
Yeah, we see that. Obviously, we're heavily in the tourism industry, and all of us, and
the reality is you see the same thing all the time. Pale skinned people come from, and it's understandable, but, I let people know. I kind of go the length of letting them know to wear a long sleeve shirt, performance shirt. Definitely keeps people cool and protected from the sun. At the very least, some type of head protection. You're absolutely going to need at least a ball cap. Some of the wider brim hats out on the market have been really popular with a lot of people, and that really kind of keeps full protection, if you will. So that's good. Obviously, you got to have sunglasses. You're going to use, I have a rule on my boat. I don't like spray sunscreen. I think a lot of people, are the same way. So lotion sunscreen is encouraged. I have no affiliation to Sunbum products whatsoever, but I found that that's my very favorite. Sunbum 50 is what I use on a daily basis.
Now, is that a lotion or deodorant stick?
It is. It's a lotion. Yeah, it's a lotion. And, really good stuff, non-greasy. I usually put a small little layer on before I leave the house, and then reapply before my customers get there, and I'm pretty much good all day. So
Sunbum 50. Thank you.
Yeah, Sunbum, really good product. I mean, it's I got no ties to it, but it's really done me well for probably about 5-6 years. The other thing I did, Rick, is for years I was that tan guy, and I had the flip-flop tan and the whole 9 yards. I don't wear flip-flops on the boat anymore just because I'm old. And I find that, my back is in much better shape and, that avail. But, obviously not getting that. I had some things removed, obviously, on tops of my feet, so don't discredit stuff on the top of your feet, and just years of being young and stupid. And the other thing is the last 3 boats have all had T-tops. I used to run without a T-top and used to almost scoff at that, the backcountry guys with bay boats and T-tops. I'm like, how does anybody cast? And I finally just got that out of my head, and it's been a game changer for myself and my customers. I mean, just a little bit of sun relief helps, and so that's where I'm at. Those are kind of things I talk about.
Let me tell you 2 things I find ironic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the old fishermen, whether they're any kind of bass fishermen, marlin fishermen, any kind of old fishermen, they've all got the big straw hats on. You ever notice that?
Yes, sir, they do.
All right. If you go to the hottest places in the world, Saudi Arabia, they're wearing the most clothes.
Yeah.
You ever notice it? We never think about that stuff. And I got news for you. Since I got switched to a big straw hat, I've learned why those old captains wore big straw hats. You are cooler wearing them. You are cooler. You are cooler wearing long pants. I went to those long zip-on bottom pants.
Sure.
Man, I never take the bottoms off. I leave them on all day long.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing. I mean, between, protective face wear and, buffs, I mean, we've come so far, lots of manufacturers are making, performance shirts now with hoods and, I mean, it's come so far, and I think people are really, getting, and it's trendy looking stuff. It's not bad looking stuff where you don't look like a goofball out there. They're really marketing it well. And, the straw hat is definitely, I see way more of those out on the water,
Oh,
that's for sure.
And I'm convinced, since I switched over and started wearing one, I'm convinced you're going to see even more than you think. Cap, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, I can't wait. We're going to have some tarpon reports, hopefully. So.
Good deal. Sunbum 50. I'll pick some up tomorrow. Thank you, Steve.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat Facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great report down in 10,000 Islands. Let's come up to the Southwest and check with Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. Cannot complain. Been very busy and been fishing a lot this week.
Good. Steve says he's seeing a few tarpon. You seeing them yet?
Well, there has been a few reports. I've seen some tarpon in the last few weeks here and there. Nothing that I would have targeted personally. I think there's a few spots maybe just a bit south of me that I may give a try, but they're just not thick enough for me to really put any time into them yet. I've seen a few roll here and there in some areas. I've heard a few guys talk about them, but I think we got another week or two until it really gets going good in my neck of the woods. Then, of course, it will be full speed from that point forward.
Gotcha. What are you catching?
Well, it depends on where you are. The offshore guys have done very, very good on the red groupers, the mangrove snappers, the lane snappers, and a few vermilions here and there. Beeliners, that have been caught. Most of them have been out about 100 feet, give or take, or a little bit more. There's a few guys that went out real far this week, did pick up a few tunas, nice tunas, blackfins that were all about 10 pounds, I'd say, watching them fillet them. So good-sized footballs, and the cobia bite continues to be good, even offshore, all the way into the nearshore guys. The permit bite did lay down a little bit. They got a little finicky. Something that's kind of weird, like when you're out there and you don't have much tide and the wind's low, it never really seems to get going good. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what happened there. Now, moving into the back bays, Rick, the redfish bite has still been really good on the cut baits, not so much on artificials, not so much on fly fishing at all. Our water is, we've been talking about it for a month and a half. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. But it's just so muddy. I still have not seen the bottom in 1.5 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet of water in the areas that I normally would have yet. And this has gone on for, a month and a half at least already. And we're continuing to get wind this whole week. So that's not going to change. The trout bite has been good, though. If you get in 2 to 3 feet of water on the higher tide, pop those corks with either artificial shrimp under them or live shrimp. Live shrimp is preferred. And you'll do really well. We did get a fish this week that was 5.5 pounds. And for us, that's a big fish. Most of the fish, though, Rick, are going to be anywhere from those small guys that are just under slot of 14, 13, up to about 20, give or take. Now, I can tell you this, though, with the water warming up, we're talking about right now, currently 78, 79, depending on where you are.
It is warm.
The snook are eating. Ironically, we don't have a lot of bait on our beaches to be able to chum or look for these things easily by just letting the little white bait swim around out there and get clobbered, but they're eating those cut baits. So the same thing we're using for the redfish is working for the snook. We caught a lot of snook this week, and a few of them were in the upper 30s. I'd say the biggest this week was maybe 35. Most of these fish are going to be anywhere from that junior size, 18 inches, up to about maybe 30.
That's good fish, though. That's still fun fish. I gotta tell you, Greg, you need to kiss your lucky stars because you are the place in Florida that seems to have good cobia fishing right now. Everybody else is looking and just not really seeing them. There was a little show on the East Coast before this last blow, but I'm certainly glad to hear you've got them.
Yeah, they're around. The guys that are doing it every day are still finding them. I had one day this week I went out early. We were trying to catch a permit. We got on the one, came off. There was big bull sharks and hammerheads all around the schools of them, so it really didn't work out well for us. We had a little blue runner on. My client was had it on right next to the boat rig. He saw this big thing coming after it, so he pulled it out of the water, and it was a cobia.
Oh, God. Oh,
and I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
the joys.
Let him eat it. Let him eat it.
The joys of being a fishing guide. Cap, thank you so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always, Rick. Talk to you later.
Before we go, let's get a word in from Shimano. Hey, there's one thing just about all our podcasters have in common. We rely on Shimano gear when the day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with a Saragusa spinner, Alan Sherman catching muttons on his bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano bills a reel for just about every fish that swims, and it seems like every year they come out with new models with names that take me 6 months to learn how to pronounce. But you know what? There's also a couple models that have stood the test of time and stand at the top of the brand even today. If I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. That's because it's been around the block and it just never fails. If there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, I can almost promise you there's Shimano Tiagras pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras year after year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the day is on the line, you can count on the time-tested Tiagra and Stratic from Shimano. Our thanks to Greg Stamper, where he said the red groupers and the cobias are biting very, very well. Let's pull up into West Central and check in with one Ray Markham. What's happening, Cap?
Things are popping.
Oh, yeah? What's a biting?
Yeah, well, if we can get the wind to settle down, a lot more be biting.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We've had lots of snook action. There've been some snook back out on the beach again. It seems like for several days they kind of disappeared with that cold front that blasted through last week. But lots of snook out on the beaches. There's lots of them ganging up on the passes now. There's a few pompanos still being caught around some of the passes. The trout action actually from about Manatee River north on the eastern side of Tampa Bay has been very good. Snook trout and redfish have just been blasting everything up around the Palm Harbor area. Offshore, guys are picking up a lot of mackerel, a lot of Spanish mackerel. Average size is around 2 to 4 pounds. Kingfish are starting to show up. Most of them are on some of the deeper wrecks or areas where you're going to find the clean water and the kind of stirred up water lines as you go offshore. So, they're still trying to pick up some red grouper on the inside of that 120-foot mark, but it's been really tough because most of the fish have been undersized. But mangrove snapper, yellowtails, lane snappers, they're picking all of those up on the inside of 100, 110 feet. So can't get much better than that. They get out, get a few blackfin. Sure.
Okay, that ain't bad fishing.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
You're an old guy like me, and you went through the baby oil with iodine phase to make it darker when you were a surfer dude. Yep. What are you recommending now for sun protection for your customers?
Well, first and foremost, probably covering up as much as you can. I wear hats that pretty much cover all of my head, shade a lot of my face, come down the back of my neck. There's some really neat stuff that's out. Some of the straw hats are pretty nice, but they're tough to keep on your head sometimes in a windy day. But long sleeves, I wear long sleeve shirts. People are always ragging on me. I'm not a guy that wears long sleeve pants unless it's winter time. But yeah, sunscreen, absolutely, with a minimum 15 SPF, no spray on sunscreen.
You and every other guy we've talked to. Ain't that the truth? Yep.
It doesn't do anything but stain the deck of your boat.
Yep. Steve Dahl says to look for a product called Sunbum 50. He said that's his,
Sunbum 50.
Yep, that's his number one.
Okay. There's a lot of really good ones out there, and I'm not really prone to take one over another. Some people like those ones that smell like a pina colada or a margarita or something like that. But I try not to get anything on my hands that has an odor to it, because I'm usually the one that's handling all the artificial baits on my boat, and I don't want that scent on the bait, because I think it turns the fish off.
For sure. All right, I'm with you. Other than long pants, I wear the long, real lightweight pants, and of course always a long sleeve performance shirt.
If I could get a really good sponsor to have some nice ones, the zip-off type, I thought those are awesome.
Give me a call when you get a chance.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
talk.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ray, as always. We appreciate your report. All right, thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now it's time for the Big Bend. It's time for the mayor of Homosassa, one William Tony. How are you, Mr. Mayor?
Doing good, enjoying some beautiful spring weather. The only thing I know that comes with spring that I can't stand, I'd rather almost fish in a drizzle rain, is the wind.
Oh, yeah. March is windy.
Yep.
It is. I can tell I can scrub my boat 10,000 times, and by the time I turn around, there's already a new leaf or a squiggle off an oak tree or, pollen. So, it's kind of fruitless. I just save it in the morning and do it right before I head out. But you know what? Fishing here on the Big Bend's been good. Our most hated wind here is definitely an east wind coupled with a full moon. We get those extra low tides, but I tell you what, it's been humping in pretty good in the afternoons. Now, when we get toward the weekend here, you can kind of look at it flip-flopping. If you want to get up before daylight and head out there, we'll have a good incoming tide for an hour or two right around daylight. And been catching a lot of my redfish on the incoming tide on the outside keys. And as a matter of fact, some of the spots that traditionally will hold redfish have been taken over by our snook population that has dropped out in droves out of our springs, like up Kings Bay and Crystal River, or here in Homosassa or down in Chassawisca. And then, some of the Jimbo Keith and Danny Allen, those guys up there in Cedar Key, they've already posted a couple pictures on social media of a few snook caught up that way. So it's just all starting to move out toward the Gulf.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you got to deal with these full moon east winds, it looks like, for a little while yet. But your water will come back. It always does, Cap.
It does, sometimes in a big way. It usually around May, and we get into June and everything, and then we start getting those big old hill tides and around full moons and new moons, and definitely around the end of September and October, it gets pretty big. In fact, there's been a lot of homes here that I've been watching on the Homosassa River. In fact, McRae's has raised their dock up because people are tired of walking out there ankle deep to get in their boat sometimes on those big tides. So, that's coming around. But as of right now, there's been some good trout fishing. And this is what I tell people this time of year. Like, hey, Captain, where can I go to just have a good time? I want to catch a few fish, maybe get some to eat. I want my son or daughter to catch some fish, action. I tell people all the time, from right now to the end of April, the foul area. It's located, if you could take a line right off of Ozella Water Tower or their tower right there and go due west, out probably about 8 miles, or 5.5 miles south of marker 2A out of Crystal River, or go Homosassa marker 6 and then run northwest for about 7 miles. That's the foul area. It's just a big area of rocks. And a lot of people fish that. Yeah, a lot of people fish it this time of year. You can spread out there. It may look crowded from a distance, but as you get closer, you'll see that there's a lot of room in between the boats. And it's a great place to just throw some jigs. Today we were using some Glow D.O.A. with a Chartreuse head and caught a limited trout, some Spanish mackerel, sea bass, gag grouper, bluefish, ladyfish. So,
if you're not getting a strike every cast, about every third cast you're hooking a fish or you're getting a bite. So it's fun fishing. And what I like to tell people, don't get hung up on one spot. Do a nice drift, and always try to look at the fleet and see which way they're drifting. And, before I come in, I try to I just put my boat in neutral, set there for about 2 or 3 minutes, let a tide and wind carry me. So that way I know what direction my boat's heading before I try to get amongst everybody, like some other people have, and try to cut in front of other boats. And, and if everybody gets in cadence and does their drift and, go through the area, and once it starts to wane or you hit kind of a darker green bottom, which indicates a big, deep turtle grass in there, you're going to catch smaller trout, then crank up and do a wide berth and come back through it. There's no use of just plowing through everybody or muscling your way in. It's an easy, nice, relaxing fishery we have here off of Citrus County. So, that's a good way to get out there with the family and put a few fish in the boat and have action and just get out there and have a good time.
Great advice. And don't be the only guy that feels like he has to spot lock. Everybody else is going to drift.
There was a couple of spot locks, and me, I'm still trolling motor free. So that means I either got to take my push pole and push off of their boat or crank up and spot lock, it is a great thing, especially if you hit a good pot of fish. But a lot of times you can hit that and maybe pick a few up, and then remember there's other people coming through the slot behind you. So just, undo and move on. There's plenty of fish out there to be caught without trying to hog up a good spot.
Exactly right. Good, wise words from Captain William Toney. Thank you, Cap. We'll talk soon.
All right. Have a great evening.
Take care, buddy. Captain William Toney, we are going to finish up our night tonight by going out the Panhandle to check with Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
We're doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
I'm doing outstanding, my boy. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Fishing's been great, actually. We've, we're really getting this heating up, both inshore and offshore bite. So inshore, we talked about our sheephead fishing over the last few weeks, and it's really gone into the mode you want to be in to catch a bunch of them.
It's time, right? It's time for them to do that. Yeah.
Yep, it's time. So we're catching, a good sheephead bite in our pass around Pensacola Pass. You can catch them from boat around the jetties or you can pier.
Uh-huh.
So that's been really good. You catch them from the land off the pier. So sheephead, we got hopefully another couple weeks of that. Also, we got redfish starting to bite again, pretty good around our docks like we talked about before. Fishing with live shrimp or like an artificial, like a Berkeley gulp. And then we got some trout starting to show up on the grass flats with this warmer water temp.
Tyler, when you talk about catching sheep's head off the pier, is that dropping fiddlers real tight to the piling? Is that the way to do it, or how is that done?
Shrimp or fiddlers or sand fleas, fishing straight up and down. It's a pretty short pier, but it ends up about 30 foot of water at the end.
Oh, cool.
And man, the pier has been stacked with people, and they're all catching sheep's heads. So it's like I bet majority of the sheephead in our bay system are on that pier right now. It seems like.
Oh, great! That's fantastic. That's a really good report. Sounds like things are really starting to get better for you guys. I think we've seen the last. I think we've seen the last of winter, and spring is finally here. Thank you, Tyler.
I hope so. Well, sounds good.
All right, Captain Tyler Massey. We'll check with you next week, buddy. My goodness, everybody's in a good mood with this weather. There hadn't been a lot of bad fishing. There's been some wind, but you're dealing with it for the most part. Inshore fishing's good right now. Offshore fishing, we know the fish are there, but, March is the month when the wind blows the most, and that's just what we have to put up with. But God knows I've enjoyed tonight. Listen, I need a favor from you. If you've enjoyed tonight, or if you have suggestions for things that you would like, and believe me, this question about sun care protection came from a listener. He said, what do you guys recommend for sunscreen? And the one thing everybody agreed on, no spray-on sunscreen on the boat. The only brand I heard mentioned was Sunbum 50. Seems like everybody's going to the long, thin pants in the summertime, the performance shirts, and we heard a lot of talk about straw hats. I know, a lot of companies are making them. For us, Castaway has become a sponsor. We're very glad to have them. The Castaway Hat Company has a hat for every adventure. But what's important is that you get covered from the sun and you get protected, and they do that at a totally another level. It's going to help us all stay healthier. But if you like what you heard this week or you've got some suggestions, please drop me an email, rick@floridasportsman.com, and we'll get your question on the air, or we will take up your matter of debate on a show very soon. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter was brought to you this week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chump on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, they've got the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids. And by the Castaway Hat Company, a hat for every adventure. Until next week, for Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we will see you on the ring.